Hello and welcome back. I apologize, this video is going up a couple minutes late. I just got back from a meeting with my team, the Oklahoma City Wolfpack, and I'll show you the shirt I'm wearing today. This is a Wolfpack t-shirt. We're going to start, I had you start reading some of the kind of tough stuff, the Kevin Hilton stuff on race and sports, so we have some type of theory to begin to talk about roller derby, the roller derby text we're going to read. I want to point out a couple things that I thought were really well articulated by you guys, and so one of them was that race is socially constructed because it's it's something that comes from outside the person. One of you guys used that phrase, outside the person. I thought that was really well put. I'm not sure if that came from Hilton or that came from the student, but it's well put because it kind of counteracts against these ideas that race is some type of scientific fact when it of course is not. And one of you mentioned, I think that was about racialization, that it's a process, and I think that's smart to think about racialization as a process. So if it's not a scientific fact, how does it what is the process by where race gets kind of perpetuated and this kind of racial thinking gets perpetuated? So those are two things that I thought were brought up that were really well put about those questions I had for the Kevin Hilton text, the first chapter of the Kevin Hilton book. So one thing I want to mention before we get into talking about the Whippet is that I do allow for makeup work for partial credit. So if for some reason you aren't able to do an assignment, then you can make it up later for partial credit. Just put it on the makeup discussion board and follow the instructions there. And in the instructions I say, you don't have to tell me why you weren't able to make it up. I'm not judging your character or anything. You know, just make sure that you're very clear about the information I do want on the makeup board, is that you're very clear about which assignment it is, what date it was due, and then you can put the assignment there. And if you have any questions, absolutely feel free to email me if anything on there isn't clear. All right, so we're going to get into the young adult novel Whippet, which reads fairly quickly. This was written in 2009 by Shauna Cross, and Shauna Cross in an interview said she was one of the founders of the LA Derby Dolls. And so a very big roller derby team. She, I believe, is from Texas, and she sets her story in Texas. One of the reasons she does that is because the rebirth of roller derby happened in Austin, Texas, and we'll see that when we watch the documentary Hell on Wheels. What I want you guys to do for the next assignment is to start talking about, we're going to start reading with it and start talking about it. Now this reads fairly quickly, so for the reading assignment for tomorrow, you'll be reading up to page 78, or if you're using an ebook format, to the chapter titled A Smashing Debut. And what I want you to do on the discussion board, it's labeled Whippet 1, is to pick a small passage out of those first 78 pages. Now, the passage could be just 2 or 3 sentences. That, I think, is good enough, large enough passage. But if it's a little smaller or a little larger, that's okay. Pick a passage, quote the passage in your post. Make sure and put quote marks around it, because those aren't your words, right? You're quoting Shauna Cross. And then I want you to tell me in that post, why specifically did you find that passage interesting? Now, it could be for a number of reasons. It could have something to do with race, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Race is the lens we're going to look at roller derby at in this class, but there are many ways to look at roller derby. I've taught classes on feminism and roller derby. There are also many different ways that we can look at roller derby culture. So if it has to do with race, that's cool. If not, that's fine. I just want you to pick out a small passage, quote it, and then explain to me why that was an interesting passage. Why did you pick that one, out of all the passages in the book? Or in the, I'm sorry, first 78 pages. After you quote the passage and then explain to me why it was interesting, I want you to respond to 2 other posts. Now, your responses to the introductions, of course, were nice to meet you and that sort of stuff, were kind of short, out of necessity, right? But for this, I want you to have a more engaged response to each of those other posts. I want you to make sure to have a sizable explanation of why the passage was interesting, along with the quote, and then I want you to make sure and engage with the other passages, right? I don't want it to be the equivalent of clicking the like button on Facebook. I want you to explain why you agree with that other poster that their passage that they picked was interesting, or you can respectfully disagree on a certain point they make, or you can add to the conversation that they've started about that passage. So make sure that you have not only a sizable post about your passage, but a sizable response to 2 other posters. And that will give us a good way to dig into the novel and really get all we can out of it. So great job so far about posting about some of this tough stuff on Kevin Hilton. The Shauna Cross book is going to read very quickly, and I think you will all find it very fun and interesting. Make sure and get your post on the discussion board up by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I will see you all next time.